Hello, hello. Welcome to Lizzie Bites Games, where we nibble, gnaw, savor, and indulge in video games. Today we're going to talk about Once Upon a Rogue's Tale. It's a game that I played for a little over 20 hours, and I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm starting to wrap up a little, and I'm thinking I'm going to dip in and out, but I've done pretty much what I wanted to do within the game. So this is a good chance for a wrap up and review. I'm going to go ahead and play the game in the background while we're waiting and just sort of talk through some elements. This is the shop within the game. I've opened up all of the extra chapters that were in the game. I've opened up all of the playable characters that are in the game, and all of the modifiers that could be applied to them. So we're going to here, let's do the Frog Prince. He's fun. So Once Upon a Rogue's Tale is a roguelike deck builder. You have 3 playable characters. Each playable character then has a run. Let's see. I like this one. And so you just sort of there's 3 chapters in each run. Each chapter is a map, and then each map is a variety of encounters. And from what I can tell, this is fairly straightforward. I'm saying from what I can tell because this is one of the first roguelike deck builders that I've engaged in any particularly meaningful manner with. So I'm sure that there is a lot of nuance that I'm not getting as I go through here. The game itself has this sort of fairy tale motif. You have the Frog Prince, you have Red Riding Hood, you have Jack and the Beanstalk. This is just the prince being turned into a frog, and he has taken refuge in a nearby cave, as one does when one is living in a fairy tale. So we're going to go ahead and go up the map. And they give you dice. Your dice are essentially your action points, and then that dictates how many things that you can do. The cards are neutral in terms of the color. Anything that the character wants to do occasionally has to have a point attached, a particular dice attached to it. So let's do that. That costs 2 cards at random. Now we can transform, and we can hit the multipede when we do. So now we're out of points. And this is the typical roundabout of all of the elements, or all of the encounters. And as far as I can tell, that's fairly straightforward. It's a thing that happens in all of these games. They all have slight nuances. This is one that it took me a minute to get a grip on, but I did eventually. This would transform him back. This would hit the millipede. Let's go ahead and do this to increase our strength. It took me a while to get a hold of some of the vocabulary at going on in these games, because this was the first one. For example, the difference between consuming a card, which means it's gone forever, or discarding a card, which means that it's just gone until the next time the pile rolls over. There's an in-between bit where banish this card means that you banish it until the end of the turn. You wouldn't see it during this battle, but you might see it later on. Oh, all right, go ahead, hit that. Can you hit again? No, and we're out of points. So, actually, one of the things that I did realize playing this game about the genre as a whole is that one of the first things to do was to find a play style that worked for me. The Frog Prince worked for me. Red was a bit of a struggle for one reason or another. And so I had to switch back and forth between them before I could really get into a groove. And then I had to go back to Red and start over again with her and see if I could figure out what was going on with that. I'm going to do that. I like zero cost cards because I'm cheap that way. So yeah, going back and forth between the characters and looking at them with the idea that there wasn't necessarily have to do, so there was more like little tips and tricks that could be done. This is a story event where you can choose between the different things. This is something this game does really well. It does these little pop-ups, which will explain what happens when you do it. So you don't necessarily have to memorize them, although I did eventually for a couple of things. So yeah. He left the camp fearing the food might be poisoned. Something hit his head. He turned around and discovered a tiny group of tiny men throwing stones at him. But when he looked closer, the Frog Prince realized they weren't stones, but small gold nuggets. The writing in this is quite nice. I do like that. One thing to note about this game, though, is that it is early access, which means that if you just kind of have a general preference to avoid early access, that's totally understandable, but I'm okay with it. I got an extra dice, so that gives me more options, but you want to keep a little bit of money because sometimes you run into encounters where somebody wants you to pay them. A red apple rolled across as he approached the apple, a dark-haired woman entered the cave. Are you hungry? I'm taking some food to my friends who work nearby. You're welcome to join us. Ooh, accept the apple, join the picnic, or offer to help. If you offer to help, you gain Snow White. Oh, Snow White is fun. You helped us even though you didn't know us at all. I will accompany you to return the favor. Oh, I like that. Choose a hand card. Okay. Let's do this one. This is new. I am still working through some of the things that I've opened up. I'm going to put him in the middle because he has to be able to reach things. So I suspect I opened up Snow White at some point, and it's been a minute. Usually I get Rumpelstiltskin there. But I'm glad that we got Snow White instead because she's cool. All right, so do I want to do a campfire? I think I want to do a campfire next. These two are equal. You can do either or. But I'll do this one because that would open up both options. But if a campfire would allow me to upgrade somebody, and that would be good. What does a dripstone do? Anyways. I really like the storybook motif. The handling the book itself gets a little repetitive, but for the most part, you can just clip through those, so that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and enemy receives 2 poison, can only trigger 2 times. So that we could do that, or we could do this. I wanted to transform. Let's see. When he transforms, he can hit everybody. Can you still? Yes. Strip you. All right. That's done. I am still making up some of this as I go. I have there's elements where I'm just like, yep, probably should have made completely the opposite decision. Again, I expect that's part of the genre. I have not tried any of the difficulty modifiers. As I say, this might be the kind of game where I dip in and out of it. Going back to what I was saying though about it is early access, which means that I think that I got my money's worth out of it, but I can understand why some other folks may or may not feel the same way. And so I'm okay with that. Hit. I like him because he just sort of hits things. And I like her because she just sort of poisons things. In the meantime, is that it? It was supposed to come out of early access at the end of last year, but I haven't seen an awful lot of info about it. So you might want to do a status check. I would put it down as a buy on sale. I think it's worth it. Sale is $7 and full price is $12. So it's not overly expensive. And like I say, I got my money's worth out of it. So I'm satisfied with it. I have a couple other games that I want to go on to as just as a way of working through my backlog, because let's face it, we've all got one. And so I'm going to go next is I'm going to do a game called Heistgeist, which is a deck builder, but it is not a roguelike. The other thing about Heistgeist is that it has a definite narrative, including cutscenes with voice acting, which voice acting is quite good. So that's cool. I'm looking forward to that. I want to see how that works. And it also will have a beginning, a middle, and an end, where is this more of a game where you just kind of roll with it until you get bored and then move on to something else. The other thing that is coming out this week that again is slightly different is a game called Turnbound, which is an auto battler. It also has a storybook motif. It's got Sun Wukong and Alice in Wonderland and Robin Hood as its playable characters. And it's got elements where it's got the roguelike elements, I think, because every time you start, you kind of start from scratch and have to build up through the map. But it is an auto battler where you set the board and then the computer runs the fight, essentially. And you've got shielding. That's why I'm not actually getting anywhere. There we go. So Turnbound is coming out. I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a lot of fun. A game called Spirit Lift is more similar to Once Upon a Rogue's Tale in that is Roguelike Deckbuilder, and you run through the maps, and then there's a little bit of meta progression as you're going. And so that one's coming out this week too. I did play that demo and it was really fun. It has a sort of retro high school horror vibe. And so I'm looking forward to that. But it may wait until after I've sorted out some of the other elements. Because like I said, I do want to move through my backlog. And then finally, the one that I'm keeping, the one that started all this was a game called Tail Spinner, which has a Japanese folktale motif to it. And it has, I think I want to do this. No. He had a swing, which would hit more than one enemy at a time. What do you get? Turn weakness into poison. Yeah, no, I'll do that. So Tail Spinner, that one is still in early days as far as I can tell. They do still have a demo out and the demo is quite fun. But it's not have made any announcements as to early access or going forward or anything like that, or release dates and stuff like that. So it's still very much on the wish list, but on the back burner. In the meantime, I think that is all I really wanted to say about Once Upon a Rogue's Tale. I do have playthroughs. You can get a better sense for the nuances of things, because I know that I tend to just sort of zhoosh right past things. Okay, you need to transform. Maybe he only swings when he transforms. I have been known to flake out on some of the details. No, there it is. He receives the swing. Aha. There we go. But he receives one weakness, and he can't do anything else. She, however, can poison this guy. So, I just kind of been brushing past some of the details on this for this review, but I have plenty of more breakdowns of what different things do, what different cards do, what different characters are like to play in some of the longer Let's Play videos. I will link to that playlist in the end. And in the meantime, let's just see if we can get through this. So he receives weakness when he does that, which means that... I wonder if he's been receiving one weakness this whole time. I've been using him like this and never even noticed. That's gonna not be able to do anything then. All right, let's just do you. And you can't do anything. I'm back. That was poorly played. I backed myself into a corner with that one. This is going to take a minute. So I'm just going to let it roll. And in the meantime, I will say thank you for watching. Talk to you later. And that was that. That's sad, honestly, because got Snow White and now she's almost dead. Ooh, she was never going to make that last boss battle anyways. All right. That is the end of that, I think. We're pretty good. Yeah, Once Upon a Rogue's Tale, I would say buy on sale solid. Buy full price, yeah, if you like the genre or if you like anything in particular that you're seeing here. It's a solid game, even if it does seem to be a little stuck in early access. Who knows? You never know what's going to happen. You're probably going to get your money's worth out of it. And I certainly did. I really enjoyed it. Talk to you later.